were the gathering place for the community, right? And that was actually an offshoot from the British traditions they brought across the Atlantic with them, because, of course, in Great Britain, the church or at that time was a substantially different thing, in as much that the king the monarch of Great Britain was the head of the Church of England, which was the only recognized and official church or denomination, as it were, throughout the land. And early maps of different communities and such that you can even find online today in Great Britain, they're not called tax maps or land maps. They're actually called tithe maps. Tithe maps. And the purpose of the tithe maps were that the church was able to establish, based on the property and how it was laid out, how big it was, the type of property, whether it's forest or field or such, how many people lived on it, and so on. They'd be able to figure out what the anticipated tithe would be. So they were almost using the term tithe as a replacement word for what we would say the term tax. They didn't have tax maps; they had tithe maps, and because of course the money, it would go to the Church of England, because they could use the scriptures to promote their cause and help raise funds for the Church of England, which ultimately was raising funds for the King of England or the Monarch of England, depending if it was male or female, because they were tithe maps. And those maps, like I said, they're still very much in existence today. And it was always expected that care was to be taken care of the land. It was to be taken care of the streams and the different attributes of a piece of property, because that you were then being a good steward of what God had provided, as reflected on the tithe map, and of course the monarch being the head of the Church of England. So that came over here, and of course they didn't use tithe maps here. Here in the original colonies, the monarch, whoever the colonizing monarch was, would deed parcels of land to different political operatives within the government of Great Britain. We've heard of the Gorham Pulteney, the Gorham Pulteney parcel, and it breaks down from there, and it's all super interesting, but it's cool how it was done in a very specific way, and with different motives to take care of it, to preserve it, to protect it, to profit from it, and ultimately to carry forth in the development of the community and in the development of the land. We've been looking at different feasts, different rest days, different things that the Lord has given mankind to bring Him glory. And now we're going to be looking at some of the specific items that were within or were used within those feast times. Verse 24 of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 1. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the children of Israel that they bring to you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps burn continually. Outside the veil of the testimony in the tabernacle of meeting, Aaron shall be in charge of it from evening until morning, before the Lord continually. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. He shall be in charge of the lamps on the pure gold lampstand before the Lord continually. Before we dig into that, I'm going to go ahead and read a couple more verses. And you shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it. 2/10 of an ephah shall be in each cake. You shall set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, on the pure gold table before the Lord. And you shall put pure frankincense on each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before the Lord continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. And it shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is most holy to him from the offerings of the Lord made by fire, by a perpetual statute. So we're looking at two very significant items that were found within the tabernacle. And the first thing that I want to point out is the term pure gold. Pure gold. We think of that, and oftentimes we just think of the color. You know, when I got married, when Laura and I got married, she gave me a gold ring, and I gave her a gold ring. But it wasn't pure gold, was it? When people, you know, Christmas is right around the season, people get their loved ones jewelry or do different things, and you might get a gold bracelet or gold necklace for a grandchild or a child or your spouse or whatever. But it's not going to be pure gold. It is extremely difficult to find things that are made of pure gold in our Western civilization for a couple of reasons. One reason is the value, the price, right? The pure gold is something that carries a significant value. It has a significant value, and certainly it would have had a significant value at this time in history, right? The gold that was used for shaping the lamps and for shaping the table, where do we think that gold may have come from? Yeah, it came from Egypt, right? So they've been carrying this gold with them for a pretty significant amount of time, right? And when they fled Egypt, when they left Egypt in a great hurry, and you know, therefore they had the unleavened bread because they left in such a hurry, and they fled across the Red Sea, which had been parted, and you know, they're carrying all of this stuff with them. That stuff carried with it. It was a burden. Gold is not light. Things are not light. You know, can you imagine trying to wrangle up, your 12 to 14 kids, your tent, and what few possessions you have, and oh, by the way, you've been absolutely inundated by the Egyptians giving you all these gold and riches that you're supposed to take with you. It's a burden, right? And then they go into the wilderness and they still have it with them. Well, why do they still have it? Why didn't they spend it? Where are you going to spend it? Who wants it, right? Who's in the wilderness that, oh, here, you know, let's buy some food for gold? No one's in the wilderness. They get into the promised land, and now they're getting ready to get in the promised land, and God is giving them these directives. Command the children of Israel to bring to you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps burn continually. Outside the veil of testimony, in the tabernacle of meeting, Aaron shall be in charge of it from evening until morning. So what time of day was this lamp burning? Right, overnight, right? Overnight. The fuel that's being used, it's olive oil. Well, why not any other kind of oil? Well, because things were limited and resources were only available that were available, and olives were certainly prevalent. They were burning the olive oil from evening until morning before the Lord continually. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. Statute means it's something that's appointed. It's an ordinance. It's something it's prescribed, and it must happen. We have statutes in our civilization today. We have statutes in our communities. Many communities have a statute where animals, if they're out and about, they've got to be tethered, or they've got to be in a leash or something like that. Statutes are put up right now in Prattsburgh. They did for a period of time try to put statutes in place that would control the placement of windmills, or the use of roads, or the weight limit on bridges. Each of these things are statutes, but God is saying here that this is a statute forever in your generations. He shall be in charge of the lamps on the pure gold lampstand before the Lord continually. So he's got to keep oil in them from evening until morning, but he's in charge of them 24/7. The bread of the tabernacle. You shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it. We read a parallel passage here in Exodus 25. You shall make the pole. And you shall set the showbread on the table before me always. Oh, there it is. It's You shall make a table of acacia wood. 2 cubits shall be its length, a cubit in its width, and a cubit and a half in its height. You shall overlay it with pure gold, and molding of the gold all around. You shall make it a frame of hand width all around. You shall make a gold molding for the frame all around. You shall make 4 rings of gold. So it's very specific on what this table that's being prescribed in Exodus is about. But then he talks about the bread. Showbread on the table before me always. 2/10 of an ephah shall in each cake bake. Does anyone know how much an ephah is? 7.5 quarts. Okay. It would be, because this is flour, ephah of flour. Okay. So that's a lot of flour. Yeah. That's a big loaf, and you're making 12 of them, right? Now, you do need to remember, it's not leavened bread, right? So, that's going to affect, but it's going to be heavy, right? It's going to be heavy. You shall set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, in the pure gold table before the Lord, and you shall put pure frankincense on each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Who remembers what the frankincense was used for or symbolized? They burn it to make the smoke, right? Smoke that would raise up, it would be a fragrant indicator. Ceremonially, it was used personally, but it was used to signify the prayers of men going up to God. An offering made by fire to the Lord. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before the Lord continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. So this bread is put out there every week. Every week, new bread is put out. It's put on display, but it's also utilized. It shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is most holy to him from the offerings of the Lord, made by fire, a perpetual statute. So what God is doing here, and it goes back to kind of this theme that's been found throughout Leviticus, is he's glorifying himself, but he's glorifying himself by making available or providing or providentially blessing those who are seeking to glorify him. He's giving them this direction so that they're being provided for. They're being taken care of. Remember, the priests have nothing. They have no land. They have no possessions. They have nothing. And in as much that they obviously still need to eat, they still need to shelter, they still need to live, they still need to be, these types of things. And so how is God taking care of that? He's taking care of that by providing through his people, by passing on these requirements, these expectations to him for his people. There's also it's in 2 Samuel, I believe. Don't quote me on that. When David is in peril and is running, and at one juncture they end up going into the tabernacle meeting and consuming the showbread. And this was, the sky is falling, and David is like, what was God's intent? What was God's plan for this? Verse 10, the son of an Israelite woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel. So an Israelite woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel, perhaps the child of a slave. And this Israelite woman's son and a man of Israel fought each other in the camp. And the Israelite's woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. And so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelomith, and the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. They put him in custody that the mind of the Lord might be shown to them. Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take outside the camp him who is cursed, then let all who heard him lay their hands on his head, and let the congregation stone him. Wow, this makes things personal. This makes things really personal. Then you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, whoever curses his God shall bear his sin, and whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall certainly stone him, the stranger as well as him who is born in the land. When he blasphemes the name of the Lord, he shall be put to death. And it goes on, whoever kills any man shall surely be put to death. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, animal for animal. If a man causes disfigurement of his neighbor, as he has done, so it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, break for break. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, as he has caused disfigurement of a man, so shall it be done to him. What do you think about that? What do you think about this eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? We hear that quite often in different contexts within our society, right? Do you think that it's a good thing? Do you think it's not a good thing? Do you think that there might be times when it's good and times when it's not? Do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think our society would be far better off if this had been practiced on that kind of point.
Okay.
To start something like that now would be barbaric.
Sure.
Would be accepted, but if that were the norm, it would be far less theft, far less adultery, far less.
Right, it was definitely a detractor, right? It definitely, if you if you were going to steal something and knew that somebody could steal something right back from you, or if you were to to cause a loss to somebody, and it was going to be create a loss for you, certainly it does drive home the point, right? In the scale of economy, when we look forward to the New Testament, right, you hear Christians say all the time, and certainly we read throughout the New Testament scriptures that we are all guilty of sin. Who is worthy? There, no, not one, right? Romans. We're all guilty of that sin. And what is the penalty for that sin? It's separation from God. It's death, right? Penalty of any sin is death. And why? Well, when you're sinning, you are acting in a way that is contrary to the very one who created you and also provides for you. I mean, it really takes it and puts it on a huge scale when you look at it in that regard, right? A little white lie is not going to hurt anyone. Any lie hurts someone, and the only person it might hurt is yourself, because you are choosing to say something that is not true. But does that not still, in fact, have a cause and an effect? Are there not consequences to that? Right? If my wife says to me, all through our relationship, she comes to me and she says, "How do I look in this?" And I say, "You look amazing. You look amazing." Right? You look amazing. And eventually, my wife, and you guys know my wife well enough by this time, she's going to test me. She's going to put on something that's super frumpy, right? That doesn't match, that doesn't, too big, too small, whatever the case may be. Would your wife do this to you, Tim? Set you up?
No.
You don't think so? But the thing is, and then well, how does this look, right? And she knows darn well if I say, "Oh, you look amazing in that," she's like, "You're lying. You're not telling me the truth." Right? Of course, there's other times that she'll put on something that she really loves, and it's like, and she's like, "Come on, just lie to me." I'm not going to do that either, right? Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, right? If you injure someone's animal, then you're responsible for replacing it. It was when we lived out west, out in Idaho. About 80% of Idaho is under the auspices of the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Bureau of Land Management. And the U.S. Bureau of Land Management gets all of the land that the U.S. National Forest Service doesn't want, the U.S. National Park Service doesn't want, the U.S. all these different. So the BLM is kind of the armpit land of our country. Like, it is the land that's left. But they also serve a valuable function in as much that they ranchers and farmers and such can rent time so that their animals can graze on BLM land. And so Idaho, round numbers, is about 80% BLM land. And so there's these animals all over the place that are just, in a couple times a year, they'll go and they'll round them up and they'll brand them and they'll separate them and they'll do their cowboy stuff or whatever. But most of the time, the animals are just free range, doing their thing. One of the laws that's on the books and is enforced very, very stringently out there is that if somebody hits a farm animal, hits a cow, hits a sheep, hits a goat, hits someone's farm animal, if they hit it with a vehicle, even if it is, the cow comes running into the road, wham, right? Not that cows do that, too much running, but I suppose a calf might, right? Or any kind of critter like that. It's the law that you are financially responsible for replacing that animal. You are financially responsible for paying for that animal. When we were living in Idaho, back late 90s, we moved back here in 2000. There was one time, because we lived up in the mountains, there was one opportunity where someone's cow actually fell off a cliff because it was a really mountainous area, fell off a cliff onto Idaho 55, which is the main north-south road going from Boise to McCall. It landed in the road and a truck hit it. And there was this huge outcry in the local newspapers because the trucking company was held liable for the death of the cow, even though the cow had just fallen off a rock face. What's that? Well, that's just it. But, kind of hard to collect the evidence when it gets hit by an 80,000-pound vehicle, right? Hamburger, scrape it up. If anyone causes disfigurement of his neighbor, as he has done, and so it shall be done to him, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he has caused disfigurement to a man, so it shall be done to him. And notice that nowhere in here is saying with intent, with intent, with intent. If something is even done accidentally, you are still liable for it. The picture that's being painted here is that we are on the hook for a lot. In this fallen world, we are on the hook for a lot. In fact, even this list that's being added up here is a list that it would take a certain amount of means to be able to do. Whoever kills an animal shall restore it. Whoever kills a man shall be put to death. You shall have the same law for the stranger and the one from your own country. So we're not treating people differently. I am the Lord your God. See what he did there? Israel is the people of God. God's chosen, God's separate, God's appointed. And God just put them on an equal playing field with every other human being. Remember how in the New Testament, even the Old Testament, the Jews, the Messiah is for them, the Messiah is for them, the Messiah is for them. And ultimately, Paul took the gospel to the Gentiles because those to whom the gospel had been sent wanted nothing to do with it. They ignored the message. And so what did God do? Whoever kills an animal shall restore it. Whoever kills a man shall be put to death. You shall have the same law for the stranger and for one from your own country. For I am the Lord your God. That's a huge statement.
No double standard.
No double standard.
Cut and dry.
The people of Israel, but God, we're yours. You delivered us from Egypt. You did this for us. You provided the manna in the wilderness. You provided you did that for us. The water out of the stone. You did that for us. You're doing all these things for us. And now you're saying that there's no difference?
And they lost sight quickly that it wasn't just them.
It wasn't just them.
It wasn't just them.
But isn't it amazing, though, how equally as quickly they started interpreting things and writing about things and teaching about things to justify their point of view versus what God was actually saying in black and white. Moses spoke to the children of Israel. They took outside the camp him who had cursed and stoned him with stones. So the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses. I've got to tell you, stoning had to be barbaric. But what a deterrent. But don't get me wrong, some of the things that people were being stoned for to this day. Stoning happens in parts of the world. It is absolutely an abhorrent form of torture and death. I can't imagine. But certainly for those who are being punished as God has provided, as God has provisioned, as God has prescribed, what a deterrent. Parts of the world where somebody steals, they get their hand cut off. What a deterrent, right? You're only ever going to do it twice. Sorry. I'm sorry. That wasn't necessary, but true. What's that? The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord." What? How does the land keep a Sabbath to the Lord? 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows of its own accord of your harvest you shall not reap, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is a year of rest for the land. And the Sabbath produce of your land shall be food for you, your male, your female servants, your hired man, the stranger who dwells with you, for your livestock and the beasts that are on your land. All its produce shall be for food. So let's take this apart for a minute. Because in one place he's saying that you can't eat, you can't take of, you can't avail yourself of stuff. But then in the next moment he's saying that the fruit of the land will be your sustenance. What's help me understand that. What do you think? What specifically is man not allowed to eat from in that 7th year? Let me ask it this way. There's an old apple orchard out in the woods. No one's taken care of it for years. Most of the trees have died, but there's still a few apple trees in there. Can you eat the fruit of those apple trees during the Sabbath, during the 7th year Sabbath? Yes. Why? Right, exactly. You're not cultivating it. You're not taking care of it. You're not. In other words, it is a plant. It is a tree that is not under your dominion. Right? You're not specifically acting upon that particular tree to cause it to produce fruit or to help it improve its fruit. Okay?
You can't feed the cat if you're reading, but you can feed a feral cat.
Exactly. As long as it's kosher. Right? Rabbits. Rabbits, they're not kosher. I know, and that's just... I think it's because of parasites. But, alas, we'll leave that for another conversation. So the field that you have been... you've been growing wheat in, you have to leave fallow for a year, okay? can you eat any residual wheat that might grow in that field that year of the Sabbath? Okay, why do you say that? Okay. The difference is, though, is that the apple tree, right, hasn't been being taken care of. It's just an old orchard that no one's paying attention to in the woods, right? No one is exercising husbandry. They're not grafting. They're not doing any of these things. They just happen to be apples that are falling on the ground. The field with the grain, right, is a field that you've been planting grain in it. And in the Sabbath year, probably some grain will grow in that field, just residual left over from the year before, right? But that actually can't be eaten for the simple fact that the reason why the grain is there is because you put it there. You exercise dominion over that particular field. Now, if you go out to a clearing or a field that's out down by the lake, for example, that no one cultivates, no one grows, no one does anything or whatnot, and there is some natural rye that's growing down there, right? Because rye is a natural plant. Certainly that could be harvested because that hasn't been under your dominion the whole time, right? That's just something that's being provided. And I think that's something that's really important to take away from this is God pointing out to us, to mankind, you know, He has given us a great deal of responsibility, a great deal of opportunity to exercise dominion over His creation. But at the end of the day, it's still His creation. And He's still going to provide for us. I love the passage in the New Testament, you know, the birds of the air, right? They neither reap nor they sow, but they're provided for. And I think that's really what's being driven down to is that God is trying to tell the people of Israel through His servant Moses that you have all of this responsibility, you have all of this blessing, you have all of this opportunity. But don't ever lose sight of the fact that it's mine. This is God saying it. It's mine. That you are mine. And that this is all mine. All right? You're headed off to a meeting. All right? Absolutely. So as we begin to wrap things up, what are some seasons in life when we've been forced to let go, when you've been forced to let go? I'll give you an example, right? In 2002, I was living my good life. I had a young family where things are going well. We moved back to New York, and I had this propensity of job hopping every couple of years. But every time I job hopped, I was making more money. So I was making pretty good bank doing different jobs, right? And then I started having this limp. I was actually working for the American Heart Association. So this would have been 2001, 2002. Working for the American Heart Association as a fundraiser for them. And I developed a limp in my leg. I just had this pain in my leg, and it was kind of a nagging pain, wouldn't go away. In February of 2002, they eliminated my position because people just it wasn't being as fruitful as they had hoped as far as fundraising goes. And within 6 or 7 weeks, I had been diagnosed with a disease that was in my hip that had actually made it so that I was confined to a wheelchair. So I went from being up here to being down here. So I thought, right? 24 years old in a wheelchair, not knowing if you're going to be able to walk. That's a pretty low point, right? I look at that as God saying, it's time for you to take a break and rely on me. And I would argue that to some extent, some greater, perhaps some lesser, but each and every believer has been in a season of life where that has been a reality. Or if they haven't been there yet, there's a good likelihood it's coming, right? And I've got to tell you, God doing that at that point in my life changed the trajectory of my life. Because all of a sudden, I had to rely on everyone else. My wife would come home from work and take me out in the wheelchair. Right? I had a toddler running around the house who I was charged with watching over and taking care of. And for the first year of her life, as she was learning to walk, she walked with a limp. And why did she walk with a limp? Because that's what Dad does. We used to call her a pirate, actually, as she's limping around the house, right? Sabbath rests are an incredible gift. And I encourage every person to find a time when they can take a Sabbath rest, meaning that you put it all away, you put it all aside, technology, books, whatever, and you just go and be. Go sit in the woods for a couple days. Live in a cabin, or just totally take yourself out of the elements that you're used to, and have your eyes opened to the blessings that God provides. Almighty God, I thank you for the Sabbaths of life. I thank you for the opportunities that we have to be put in a place that forces us to rely on you and to look to you. And as much as we dread not being in control because of the way that our culture is taking shape, and the civilization that we live in, we know that we are foreigners in a foreign land, that our home, our eternal place, our eternal home is with you in your presence. And yet we get so caught up in that which we have been blessed with by you in your creation. Lord, as we are entering a holiday season, remembering your arrival in your creation, I would ask that you open our eyes to those opportunities when we can truly take that Sabbath rest, to put aside, to put down, and to totally focus and rely upon you. It is in doing so that our eyes will be drawn with great clarity to who you truly are and for what you have truly blessed us with. Lord, as we bring our time together tonight to a conclusion, I hold up the trustees of this local body, those that are charged with the business decisions of the church. I hold up the elders who were charged with the spiritual leadership within this church, leadership under your headship. Lord, I hold up our pastors, Pastor Tim, Pastor Will. And Lord, I hold up this body of believers, some who may be young in the faith, some who may be mature, steadfast followers of you, but all drawn together in one community, one body, your church. Lord, I bring these things to you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. It's getting warm now, Tim.
Yeah, now,
It's kind of like a school bus.
60.
It's kind of like a school bus.
5 degrees.
I did my entire run this morning.
Yeah.
I get back to the school to let the kids off the school. My water temperature wouldn't even make a lukewarm bathtub. Good old diesel engines on both sub-zero days.